Hi, everyone. Welcome to our final installment of Chakras, Exploration and Discovery, our, what is the name of our March series. Uh, we're in the final and fifth and final stage here. And I wanted to begin by reading the description of what I said, where we're heading here. It says, approach the great mystery. Okay, sounds a little enticing. And how the microcosm is a reflection of the macrocosm, and how chakras are a map to our connection to life. Okay, this is a lot of big territory. So let me start with just some basic ideas that we can approach and relate to. Beginning with the recognition that there are patterns in nature. Nature is not put together in an arbitrary way. We were just talking about gardening, right? There's ways that we can sync up with the pattern of gardening in a way that will produce fruit and bounty. And there's ways that are less effective for that. Ultimately, what we do with gardening is try to configure a number of variables in such a way that the product is that the plant grows or that it bears fruit or so forth. We can control some of the variables, but ultimately it's really up to the plant's desire and destiny to either grow or produce fruit or not. We just foster it. We're kind of steward that way. And so there's many different layers of patterning that happens in nature, including migratory birds, for example, or how a cell or atom functions. There's a certain order in which that happens, a predictable order. That's largely the work of science, is to try to figure out these patterns and so forth. And you could do that just objectively, just to know. And more often than not, that gets applied towards technology and towards utilization. And then on a larger scale, you have patterns woven into one another. So that this exists not only in your garden box or how your laptop is put together here, but if you look at ecosystems, for example, where there's the pattern or lifestyle of one little creature in relationship to the pattern or style of another creature, in relationship to how the trees grow, in relationship to the hydration or hydrological system within, say, the rainforest, and all these different weaves and patterns of relatedness occurring. I think that's one of the what makes going into rich natural environment so enriching. Is like there's so many nuances and layers that of life occurring, as opposed to, say, a sidewalk, right? Or you might get one renegade little weed trying to forge a different path, right? Or and what's and here we kind of get into this micro and macro principle. This is an edict in yoga. It says that the microcosm is a reflection of the macrocosm. That the way things are designed or patterned on a small scale is also reflected in the larger creation. And one way we could think of that, just on an immediate level, is just simply how the laws of physics, right? So through these physics calculations, they're able to predict how planets move, and if you were to drop a brick, exactly how long it would take to get to the ground, and that there's an order to the way in which phenomenon occurs. And it's the same sort of predictable order and laws and principles in over here that also apply very, you know, far out, uh, far out in space as well. You know, that you know, there's some variance that goes on, but it's all more or less accounted for on the through the lens of physics. And similarly, or rather, another example would be just the principle of, and here's where we start getting into the more yoga territory, is to say just simply awareness. That awareness exists both on an individual basis, so with your particular psyche, but there's also a principle of universal awareness. That there's some, and you to use Sanskrit, you say it's mahat, is the word, is the one name for this principle of universal awareness or universal intelligence. And the mindscape that is responsible, you could say, for all the underlying intelligence that unites creation. So on one level, creation is diverse and different. Like you have the pattern of a cell, or the atom, or the pattern of a cell, or the pattern of an organ system, or the pattern of the physiology. Like those are all little different bits or components. They're separate. They're not separate, but they're distinct. And you know how your body fits into the other, the rest of ecology and so forth. We say, oh, that's separate, 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 separate. So on one level, yes, there is separateness, but they're also unified or integrated, right? Were there not atoms, the rest of the system wouldn't exist. And what's more, I have a relationship to my environment. And what's more, in the continuum of time and space, the only thing that's really happening is now, right? Our the momentum of the past or expectations about the future, that's just conceptual. Like if you just stop, this is it. And there's a kind of unified sense of everything happening simultaneously. But they're not indeed entirely separate. And so what's the basin, or the basin for that operative intelligence of the present moment? And there's different words we could use, but one of them in Sanskrit is simply mahat, or universal intelligence or universal consciousness. And similarly, we have our own little finite, you know, pool of awareness or consciousness that each of us harbors, which is a microcosm of the macrocosm. There's a story in yogic mythology, a creation story. And off in the cosmic waters, which is to say infinite, you stand on the shore and you look out over the horizon of the ocean, and it's hard to say how long it goes, but appears to go for a very long ways. So out in the cosmic ocean, there's a serpent that's wound up like this 3.5 times. And resting on this serpent is like this. There's actually a pose named after this figure, Narayana. It's an incarnation of Vishnu. And Narayana is slumbering like this, asleep. And from Narayana's navel, there's the sprout and there's a lotus that emerges. And seated in the lotus, in the lotus, none other than Brahman, the god of creation, or the progenitive or creative force. Everything in existence is either coming into being, hangs around for a while, or dissolves or goes out of being. This continual cycle. So Brahma is the initial part of that cycle, Lord of creation. And so Brahma is seated in a meditative posture. He's got 4 heads facing every possible, well, cardinal directions. And Brahma closes the eyes and then starts to open them like this. And as Brahma does this, the entire universe creation comes into existence. The Big Bang gets started like that. And Brahman opens the eyes for it's hard to put time on this, but for the necessary duration for an entire universe to come into existence. And then Brahma closes his eyes and the universe subsides or dissolves like this. And this is regarded as one day in the life of Brahman. And then the next Brahma day opens his eyes once again. Whole creation emanates, comes into existence, closes the eyes. However many billions of tens of billions of years that happens. And then the universe implodes back within itself. Like this. And so Brahman lives for 100 years like this. And that's one cycle of a greater part of a greater cycle. Then a new Brahman is born, and then back and forth like this. What's more, there's not just one Brahma doing that, there's multiverses. There's other universes that are coming to being every time there's like this myriad of interrelated coming into existence and receding. I tie this into chakras and to say that there are qualities, universal qualities that are embedded within chakras that can also be found on a macro scale. Just a simple example. If you look at Muladhara, the base of the spine. And within Muladhara is the seat of the earth element. Now by earth, I don't mean like a rock or dirt lives there. Just the principle of solidity, material, dense matter. And within Muladhara, base or root chakra, resides this principal force of earth or groundedness and stability. And we look around and we see, varying degrees of groundedness. Sometimes there's more air element in things, or there's more fire element or radiant combustion kind of quality to things. And so embedded within the chakra system, and all 5 elements have their seat in a respective chakra and beyond. So essence of mind up here, universal awareness up here. That the process of the creation, the intelligence of the creation is mapped out within the chakra system. This is our microcosmic access point into greater universal reality, that we can come to understand the scheme of creation and our particular role into it, and be able to see life and ourselves and our relationships from more and more universal perspective as a kind of more and more clearly, right? Through working with chakra systems and other yogic methodologies. All right, friends, we'll transition here into practice in just a moment.